Edgar is a holistic visionary and chaos magician. Now, we're going to get into the crux of exactly what all this means because to the uninitiated, that might sound like a lot, but Edgar's a really positive person who has a lot to say. So, Edgar, if you don't mind just getting into the start of this, how did you enter the field of magic?
Yeah, that's a complicated question. I feel like as a kid, I think I always believed in magic. I just didn't really conceptualize it that way. I also like to say that, it's similar to spirituality. Like spirituality and magic seem to go hand in hand. And so I really believed that I was also spiritual. I just, as a kid, we don't really conceptualize things that way. So, um, yeah, I think what got me into magic from the start was when I was 12. I started reading online like how to read people's minds. I started like looking up, for some reason I had that idea to look it up, and I didn't really think that it was possible, but I I don't know, I guess I had an intuition to do it. And so one of my first experiences was where I found this technique on this website where you ask a friend to pick 2 or 3 cards. Or no, it's just one card actually, now that I remember. So it's just one card, and then you call another friend and you ask that friend to tell you to tell, yeah, you both what the card is. And so I did that with one of my friends when I was at his place one time, and I was like, this is a mind reading technique, I told him this is a mind reading technique and it works 100% of the time. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So he picked a card, and then we called a friend, another friend, and we are like, Breland, what's the what's the card? Like, just guess. And he was like, King of Spades. He's like, yeah, oh my god. We were like freaking out. So it was one of the coolest, most interesting experiences that I'd never decided to replicate for whatever reason. I think it was a good opening to my experience with extraordinary or the supernatural, I guess you could say. And for some reason it worked. Who knows? I never kept going with studying that, but I decided to study other things. I'd like to say that I have always loved studying the intersections between cutting edge psychology, spirituality, and philosophy.
Right. So,
So,
you're coming from a very intuitive nature because I know that like these card reading tricks, the mentalists can use some sort of like reading people's body language, but from what you're saying, yours was entirely intuitive. Like it comes to you in your head.
yeah, pretty much. It's That's a good way to put it, in the sense that, like, how you said that it comes to me in my head, because I do believe that I feel like my clear cognizance is my one of my strongest clairs. If it's not my first, it's my second. My second strongest is the clairsentience, which is the clear feeling part. Clairvoyance is maybe the third one, but yeah,
Yeah,
like claircognizance is just knowing things without really knowing how you know them, knowing shit without knowing how you know it.
it's so
So
hard to explain to people who don't
yeah,
understand. But as I was saying in my last interview, being psychic isn't really anything more than just being able to tell the truth. That's really all it is.
mm,
Uh,
yeah,
so I noticed that you're, especially in your content, you're very positive, extremely positive. Yet you're a
hmm.
Scorpio rising. So are
Oh,
you?
actually, I'm a Sagittarius rising.
You're a Sagittarius rising. Oh, my
Yeah,
bad. I was
with
wondering.
a
I was
Pluto
like,
rising actually too. So Pluto on my ascendant as a Sagittarius rising, so it kind of does make me a Scorpio rising.
oh, okay. Sorry, I probably
Yeah.
misunderstood that from the
Oh no,
video.
you're good.
Uh, so I was wondering. I was like, Scorpio rising. I was like, you can't be that happy, right?
Well, I am a Sagittarius rising, so.
Okay, that explains it a little bit better. That also
Hmm.
explains your love for all of this information that seems to be coming to you. I myself
Hmm.
have a bit of clairaudience. I can really hear things when I get into that
Mm.
connection state. Not much else, unfortunately. I'm kind of stuck to that for now, but who knows?
Oh, that's cool.
Regardless, when I look at a lot, especially one of your recent shorts where you were talking about how do you want to phrase it, the elites or the people that are very much in control, they use persuasion and information to really control the masses. And your response was that the people need to use that themselves to combat the elites. In a time where the world's so negative, what's your idea or plan to get that to happen or bring that into reality?
Okay, wow, we're going really deep.
Yeah,
Right from the get-go.
that's who I
Yeah,
am.
I can tell you all about it. Let's see how I can talk about this, and because there's different moving pieces to understand that can be helpful. So the first level is definitely hypnosis, because that is the level that people can understand a little bit more. And I'll just tell you what my definition of hypnosis is, and so that everyone can know, and yeah, we'll go from there. So I think most people misunderstand hypnosis and think it's a phenomenon where, you know, a hypnotist puts someone to sleep through, you know, a coin or their words or whatever. And yes, like hypnosis does involve that, but hypnosis is actually much more expansive in its scope, to where when you really get into it, you realize that everything is hypnosis to some extent, because hypnosis is the art and science of capturing attention and directing it where you want it to go. And that's actually what marketers and advertisers are really, really good at. So you could say that they are the master hypnotists of the world, even though they may not have ever learned hypnosis. They are very powerful at it because that's their job. They have to capture attention the moment you see the ad, and then direct it to you coming into conclusions through their hypnotic processes that you need their product.
Nope.
So
That makes total
that's
sense. And one of
mhm.
my favorite quotes that I saw, you ever watch The Boys? It's on Amazon.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, the one of the main persons who's like a CEO, he says, because they deal with like superpowers and superheroes and stuff. He goes, people
No.
think that power is this. It's not. It's this. It's not being able to force people to do
Mm,
stuff. It's to bend people around your will. And I think that's where we're getting at, is that it's
yeah.
subconscious as where the power lies. So you're planning on using this, almost like fighting fire with fire, right?
Not really, in the sense that one of my favorite quotes by the Taoists is that when you give evil nothing to oppose, it disappears by itself, which sounds cryptic and paradoxical. But when you apply it with this certain techniques that work psychologically in conversational hypnosis, which is actually like a stealthy version of regular hypnosis, where you can use it at any time in any moment, and through certain language patterns and certain techniques, and then you can apply that into regular hypnosis, or clinical hypnosis is what I mean, hypnotherapy. When it comes to a specific technique with that relates to that quote of when you give evil nothing to oppose, it disappears by itself. There's this technique where there's a story. I'll tell you about the technique through a story. So there was this guy who was working at this gym who learned a little bit of conversational hypnosis. And there was this technique that is called mirroring. And it's not just mirroring words, it's also mirroring the emotional state of the other person. And so one day this huge bodybuilder comes in, he starts working out and stuff. Then he realizes he needs to go to the bathroom. And when he goes to the bathroom, he starts to get really angry. Like something happens, right? He starts to get really angry and starts screaming like, "There's no toilet paper in the bathroom!" And he's like so mad. He's coming out and like, and so this guy, the conversational hypnosis guy who got trained in it, he remembers his training and he's like, "There's no toilet paper in the bathroom? What? You are a loyal customer. you deserve better. And then the bodybuilder was like, whoa, 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 bro, calm down. So it reversed the whole, like, I guess you could say that
Yeah, I
his
do get
whole
what you mean.
state just crumbled.
Fire needs fuel to burn.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you're like, let's just get rid of all the fuel that's out there. Because, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it does seem like if you look at any media, anything that starts with 3 letters, it is just anger, anger, anger over and over again. There's so much to get angry
Yeah.
about and so much to get scared about. But, that's why I like your positive outlook and your relentless positivity, where it's like, no, we almost need to just step away from this just drowning in anger we've been feeling for, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
since I was born. My first conscious memories was like 9/11, so it's just been like chaos and fire ever since then, I think. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, no, that is true. I remember I was like, because I was born in '97,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah, so my first, like, I was like 3.5 or 4 or whatever when 9/11 happened. And I just remember everyone screaming and freaking out. And that's like what jump started my consciousness. I'm like, what do I need to be concerned about?
Whoa. That's pretty
But
interesting. I was born in 98.
I had a feeling we were around the same. So
Yeah.
that makes sense. Oh, now that's making sense. So because we're both Sagittarius and Pluto
Mm.
generationally, you're just a Sagittarius. I'm a Virgo rising, so
Oh, okay.
I got issues, man. I got lots of issues I got to work through. I got to be perfect, apparently. But you talk about perfectionism. You explained how you went through a couple months of a gap where you really felt a lot of pressure to make videos, and you stopped for a little bit, and then you were like, I'm going to stop being so perfectionist about this. Do you still feel that
Mm.
way?
I don't think I feel that way anymore. That's a good question because I am actually a Virgo sun and I have like four planets in Virgo and it's a whole stellium.
Yeah.
All those
Those
four
Virgo
things.
placements can be pretty mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so even with Venus there, since Venus is in its fall in Virgo, that can be very challenging because it's just so critical in so many aspects when it comes to love. But the beauty of it is that uh, it's about self-compassion, which comes back to your question about me, how I feel about making videos. Self-compassion that reflects into compassion for others, and vice versa. More compassion for others can reflect into more self-compassion. Yeah, and then on top of that, like Virgo is definitely about improvement. So it's not necessarily perfectionism. Maybe perfectionism is like the shadow aspect, but then it's improvement. And then when it gets serious and sincere and through love, then it evolves into self mastery.
I like what you said in one of those videos where you said perfectionism is embracing your divinity along with the messiest parts of your humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a really great way to put it. Uh,
Thank you.
so I kind of want to circle back to, because you're a visionary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we're both, on for it's rare to find another guy like me who's focused in the topics of spirituality so young. As I guarantee most guys our age are like still kind of barbaric. They're still
Yeah.
it's just like sex, drugs, all the fun stuff, and we're sitting here thinking like end game, like why am I in this life? How can I help people for the future? How can I plan for people who are going to exist after I am gone? And I think it
Mm-hmm.
involves, people like you really need to go through a lot in order to understand that. And so I think you know how much it needs to change. How much negativity do you experience being a young spiritualist?
That's a good question. What do you mean by negativity?
Like, I'm in conservative Oklahoma. So if I bring up
Uh,
anything that's not Jesus, people are almost like, dog, you got to do your research. They never say what research. I assume they mean the Bible, which I've already read,
read the Bible
but
again.
just keep reading it till it sticks, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, do you find it hard to connect with other people your age, or find other guys that are, kind of on the same wavelength as you, or do you have a different experience?
Yeah, I would say I have a different experience in the sense that, well, I live in Austin, Texas, and there's a lot of spiritual people here. And then the whole Christianity thing is not as strong in the collective of the city in Austin, as far as I know. Like, there's definitely churches for sure. There's a lot of Christians here, but it's not the majority. And
I gotta
in
move.
terms of the negativity, what?
I gotta move.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
gotta
move.
get out. I gotta get out of here. But go on,
Yeah,
as
and
you were saying.
yeah, in terms of the negativity, I can speak on negativity in the sense that I have been a Lyft and Uber driver for the past almost 3 years, and there is, driving through Austin, there are dark energies for sure. What I've encountered though at the same time is that most of the people are very kind or cool people, you know, like they're conscious enough to be accepting of others and respectful, not necessarily kind, but at least accepting and respectful. And a lot of the times they are kind, at least in my experience. It might be my vibe that influences them, or it might be the waters of Austin, which apparently are blessed, because these Buddhist monks, this is kind of a side tangent story. These Buddhist monks one time decided to go to the aquifer of Austin to bless the waters. And when they got there to bless the waters, they were like, oh my gosh, this water, it's already been blessed. This is really cool. We're gonna bless it anyway. And so it made so much sense to me when I heard that story, because every time, like, I would go to Barton Springs, which is this really famous attraction within Austin, where it's like they turned this small spring, stream, river into like a pool, and it was very sacred to the Native Americans, which is unfortunate that they stole it from them. But yeah, it's a very beautiful energy there in Barton Springs, where the water feels so much more cleansing spiritually.
Well, I'm glad that you're not having so much of a rough time with it. Have you always been in Austin?
Most of my life, yeah,
Nice.
most of my life
Seems
since
like
I
a
was
pretty cool place.
7. You what?
Seems like a pretty cool place, actually. Now that you're saying it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's definitely one of the vortex. It has a lot of vortexes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, like Sedona, for example. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love
Yeah,
Sedona.
absolutely. I am right now in a full-fledged plan to move to Tucson. So,
Oh, nice.
very important for
Good.
me to get out of here. And the more people I speak to, I'm like, I have been struggling way too much here because
Mm-hmm.
moving. I want to keep on to this because that's the first thing I notice about you when we're doing the research is that consistent, I almost said toxic positivity. I have to be careful there. I don't mean that, but I think I'm just a negative Nancy.
No,
Remember
you're
that.
good.
But there is a very positive aspect to what you do, and your language when you write is very floral. You have your own, because for a second when I'm reading your mission statements, I'm sitting there. I'm a Tauros Mercury, so I'm super just like straightforward, dumb bull energy.
Mm.
And then I sit there and I was translating, and for a second I was like, oh my goodness, what am I? But then I started to get it. You really do have a language of your own that you're developing, and the longer I read, the more I was understanding what you were getting at. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Despite all of that, what do the darkest moments of Edgar look like?
Wow, that's a good question. Oh my gosh. Like my darkest experiences, or dark. What do you mean by that?
However you want to take it, or whatever comes to mind. I mean, I want to know what it looks like when you're really struggling, because in order
Okay.
to really feel the need to heal people, I assume you've gone through some challenges to get there.
Yeah, true, definitely. Yeah, when I would really struggle, when I was really struggling, that was especially after the breakup with my ex in the fall of 2021. That was a time when I stopped focusing on spirituality and my spiritual purpose, which has, like, had been my focus for, like, main focus for so many years. And for me to do that is just, it's it takes more of a toll, I think, on my consciousness than most people probably, because yeah, I just it's like it really, what's it called? It creates a split within me. And that split just feels very depressing in the sense that it can get really hard to do things, to be productive, and then that can create like a negative spiral, or that has created a negative spiral of like just yeah, like not taking care of myself, or not like yeah, not loving myself as much, of course. But then it would get into just I remember I would work a lot more in terms of like making money, and through a job that doesn't resonate with my soul. But it would be like so much more intense focus on that, and then on my free time, instead of working on spirituality, enhancement, manifestation type things, I would just spend time on video games or anime, which I love those things, but now through the magic that I've been doing, it's been so much more fulfilling, and it still feels like a game to me. So
Yeah, and that's was in your
I hope
mission
that answers the
statements.
question.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, of course. You know, I can understand, especially when you have so much Virgo energy, that when you go through a breakup, that can really feel,
Mm.
because some breakups aren't always like you did anything wrong. Sometimes it's just it wasn't it, but there's that sense of like, what did I do? How can I fix me? And
Yeah.
that's not true. I've been there so many times. And yeah, I can understand that, because I also, when I'm in my deepest, darkest, I'm just I was playing Valorant like all day, and then I quit all video. I mean, I still like tinker with some like city skylines and stuff when I'm bored, but now that I'm focused, yeah, I can't do that,
Mm.
because I realize that the games were what I kind of wanted in myself, which was progression, and that's in your mission
Mm.
statements, is that you see life as an RPG video game. Is there anything you want to say about that before I go on? Because I did really like how you phrased it. You're like, life is kind of like a game.
Yeah, thank you. And honestly, it is starting to feel more like a game. There's definitely like certain things you can do with chaos magic, and the occult magic, so hermetic magic. It's that feels like you're doing upgrades and leveling up, and it's kind of insane because if there are stats, you notice that they improve. Like if there are stats that are able to be measured, you'll definitely see them improving
Right.
through using practicing magic, and that has been very like incredible to me to experience, and it's something that I've been experiencing the past couple of weeks, so like almost a month now. And yeah, so the other thing about RPG, seeing my life as an RPG video game, is that it's been an idea that I've had since maybe 2019, and it was kind of like been a dream. Like what, like I know that it's possible for us to be so clairvoyant enough to see like our stats, for example. Like what if we had spirits that could help us see the stats of our evolution so that we can track them, and without using any technology, just our psychic technology. That's kind of been a dream for me. And so my intention through what you read in my future self blueprint of seeing the my life as an RPG video game, it comes from that. So yeah, it's just a vision, and but at the same time it's like a vision that I'm moving towards through making sure that I accomplish my priorities first before I get into really like focusing on making a product or a system that can help people experience that, which has I don't think anyone has discovered yet.
I, I
It's
do
possible.
like I do like that,
Mhm.
because a lot of people from our generation, that's going to kind of what is going to resonate with us,
Mhm.
is the RPGs and leveling up, because the older way of explaining it is,
Mm.
I don't know, it's not relevant, because we all grew up with video games, you know. There's not
Yeah.
anyone I know that doesn't understand that system. So are you working with clients now, or are you still building out your coaching system?
So I am working with one client and still building, and I realized like I can shift my services to be more to involve more of the chaos magic aspects that can definitely assist the process, and not just with individuals but also with organizations, because with organizations you can do magic for the whole organization that manifests, for example, protection for the business, or it could be increase in sales for the business, or it can be more cooperation between the people in the organization that's more, collaborative and peaceful. And I, in Gallery of Magic books, which is the chaos magic that I practice, although they wouldn't necessarily call themselves chaos magic, they combine chaos magic with ceremonial magic into like one thing, which is really cool. And it's also very practical and easy to use, like for beginners. Any beginner can use it, and it's still very powerful. So, Gallery of Magic books are something that I use, and then yeah, what I was going to say about the Gallery of Magic too, is that they have certain rituals that can do those things that I mentioned, of like helping organizations in those ways of protecting the business, increasing collaboration in positive ways between the people, and increasing sales, among many other things.
So
So
what would you say the importance of sigil work is, or having a sigil for a business? Is that something you do?
that's a good question. And I feel like it's very important because this is not something that most people know, but what is, from what I understand, the elites, even the financially wealthy elites of the different companies, for example, Nike, McDonald's, they actually have occultists working with them. And the logo is the sigil, where they create, I don't know how conscious they are of it. I don't know how like intelligent they are with it, but with those logos, they, from what I heard, they put those logos into a box with different items that are ritualistic to for certain manifestations, and they make that logo into a thought form called an egregore, so that every person who looks at that logo gives energy to the thought form, which becomes more conscious over time and is able to influence the people within the company and also the people who buy the products. So it is very important, in my opinion, to create a logo. And but what's even more important is to create the thought form in such a way that it serves the greatest good, in my opinion, because that is like the most altruistically selfish thing we can do when we manifest. And the reason I believe that is because if we want our greatest good, what helps is if we create ripples into the collective that serves their greatest good, so it comes back to us, which is karma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's why I have it as, it's not just a value, it's more like a mode of operating that is very practical to serve the greatest good.
So I should have a sigil for Connection Lane.
Yeah, I would recommend it, and it would be very helpful because it's not, the power is not in the sigil, it's more the power is more in the thought form that you create with it. And the thought form you create, you can create it into a servitor, which means that you can communicate with that thought form, and you can ask that thought form to manifest different things as well. So
Oh, that's creepy. So you're almost like making a consciousness.
that's exactly it. And thought forms, you can think of thought forms as human created spirits, and we're always creating thought forms. Most of them are just pretty weak, but whenever we have an emotional experience like a trauma, a thought form from those experiences, or even like a really beautiful experience that's very positive, those create stronger thought forms that exist in the space where they happen.
Wow. Ooh, that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of creepy. I haven't really. investigated much into this work. So
It goes deep.
yeah, it go
Yeah.
very deep. I kind of get on some subreddits and see, you know, like occult stuff or magic work, alchemy, but I haven't really gone down that avenue so much. You're actually my first person that I've talked to with any of this. Uh,
Okay.
so I have learned a lot, and so mm, man, there's so many directions I want to go right now. I want to keep this on a pretty consistent plane of thought process. So I guess going with sigils,
Hmm.
does how is one created? Is there kind of like a system to creating a sigil, or what's the importance of it?
Mm, that's a good question, and I believe that the best way to create a sigil is through your intuition and utilizing whatever symbol would resonate with you the most, would resonate with your heart the most. That's what I would recommend. So it can be like a symbol. Ideally, it's a symbol that has never been seen before. So something unique and something that resonates with your heart at the same time. And the thing about sigils is that it's similar to hypnosis, where by staring at a sigil and charging it through your gaze and through your breath and the energy that you pour into it, which by doing that, you start to build the thought form and give it power. So ideally, you want to have a specific intention when you do that, so that helps to manifest what you want. Um, what I realized with sigils and how the other way that it relates to hypnosis is that you could use literally anything as a sigil, and that means even 3D objects can be sigils. They're called in magic. They're called effigies usually, and I think they have another term. So actually, they could also be amulets or talismans, because it's the intention that you pour into that amulet or talisman or effigy. Effigies are usually statues, or voodoo dolls could be effigies. Um, I don't do voodoo dolls, by the way. That's crazy. But yeah, like you can. Those would be three-dimensional sigils, and then there's four-dimensional sigils, which are called hypersigils, and that's where it starts to get really powerful, and something that I've used myself to manifest this version of myself that is more feels more magical energy and experience, feels more like a more powerful magus or magician than I ever thought I could be. And that's what hypersigils can do, among other things. They can also, of course, manifest things in the external reality, but it's not, but again, the power, remember, is not in the sigil, it's in the energy and intentions that you put into it that create the thought forms within the sigils, or through the sigils that also expand outside of the sigil and influence space and time, which is why manifestation works. Like, manifestation works because people, whether they know it or not, are creating thought forms when they practice visualization or whatever manifestation technique they're doing. They're actually creating thought forms, but most of the people who are doing law of attraction manifestation work, they're not aware that they're consciously creating thought forms. So that it's kind of like happening in a sloppy way, because what matters with thought forms is concentrating that energy as much as possible into, like, to make it more and more dense. Because the reason why this is important too is because when you do this, the thought forms will be more powerful. But not only that, you can make them so powerful, specifically servitors. You can make your servitors so powerful that they can influence the physical reality by, like, moving objects, kind of like poltergeists, like ghosts that can move stuff around in the physical space. I have not experienced that myself with I actually created my servitor like a few days ago.
So,
But yeah, so
now that you're saying it this way,
mhm,
I'm just putting it in, like, because I come from heavy religious backgrounds, right? So when you're explaining these sigils and these, I want to make sure to say it's hypertors,
hyper sigils.
hyper sigils. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm looking at like the Jewish religion when they were in the desert and they had that the movable box they were carrying with their sigils inside. I'm thinking of Christians with their cross. I'm thinking of Islam with like their Mecca. Is that the same kind of realm that we're looking for, like a focused sort of
Mm.
thing that people can believe in?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are effigies and three-dimensional sigils. Those things that you mentioned for sure. Even the Bible is a hyper sigil, actually. This
Wow.
gets really deep.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess since we're getting so deep in it, I guess we'll go into kind of the
Mm,
bigger topics. I may not be able to keep up super with like a lot with you, but
mhm,
when I was going through some of your documents that you showed me, you were mentioning about like angel work. So this is actually
mm,
working with deities. How did you first get into working with, I guess, other entities?
Good question. So I think the first time I got into it was when I was in high school, and I took psychedelics, and psychedelics really opened me up to what's in the spirit world, I guess you could say, because what they do, which everyone pretty much knows, is that they catalyze the power of your imagination. But what most people don't really know, or maybe forget, is that the imagination is actually the way that we access the spirit world. Like everything that is imagination is the spirit world, which is why even thoughts exist in our imagination. And that's why thoughts are also part of the spirit world. And that's why like thoughts are like little spirits in and of themselves. They're most of them a lot of the times are not even ours. They come from external sources, but they make us think that those are our thoughts. You know, it seems like they're our thoughts a lot of the time. So that's why it's important to always, whenever we see or encounter negative thoughts, to surround them with love and send them into the source. That's a very helpful way to become more positive over time.
Right. I can
Mhm.
understand that because when I was going through a break as well, there was a couple months where I felt so discouraged in Connection Lane. And much like you, I kind of needed a couple months off. I found that just coming back to it and being like, let's source work through me. Don't try and force it through like my own individual willpower. I was like, just like,
Mhm.
hey, just whatever the universe wants me to do, let me do it for you. Ever since then, things actually are working a lot more smoothly. Is that kind of how
Mhm.
you operate with just like a more letting the universe guide you, or do you have a more directed approach?
I think it's a combination of both because, and I honestly believe that the more wise way to approach it is to allow the universe to guide us. But I like to be directive with my ego too, just to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the most practical, but I do believe that the most practical thing is yeah, is just to connect with our divine intelligence, which you could say is the source. And it's a stream really where I think you mentioned that it creates like a flow state where it allows you to get the things that you want done. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Beautiful. Have you ever had any? So you're talking about negative thoughts and not letting them
Hmm.
influence you. Have you ever encountered like a truly negative deity?
Okay, so deities are, I would say, a type of spirit where you can say they're gods and goddesses. I don't necessarily think I've encountered a deity that's negative, but definitely entities that have been very challenging and negative to wrangle with, I guess you could say, or to go toe to toe with, you know, where the only weapon you have that can actually work is love at the end of the day. From my experience, you can peace, love, like the high frequency emotions, surrounding ourselves with those as much as possible while we um go face to face with it. Like you can put your hands in front of them and surround it with love, while at the same time, you can't be in fear. But yeah, I've encountered some pretty strong ones, I would say. Yeah.
What's it like? I mean, is it just negative thoughts, or they kind of creep up in more insidious ways?
No, yeah, when you say negative thoughts, I'm thinking like little things. So they're not little. They are much bigger. And I believe that some of them are thought form, or it's possible they're thought forms created by humans, like collective consciousness experiences. But I also believe there's actually, you know, demon or demon-like entities that, are strong. And they can be very intelligent too. So yeah, they do feel strong, and what it feels like is almost like getting frozen by dread or fear, and like trying to hold you with that energy. And so the last time it happened, it was like a week ago, where I was like psychically attacked by a type of entity like this. And even though I had like protection energy, which like I accumulate every day ever since 2 weeks ago, it was still able to attack. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna observe it neutrally, like just the vibes, because it was trying to tell me like certain things, like, hey, or the fear, I don't know, or the entity was trying to like cause me to have an accident while driving, something like that. And so yeah, I was just like observing it neutrally, and called in, like all the forces, the air force of dragons, spirits, angelic dragon spirits, to help create all the protection around.
So, what's your process when you're connecting?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do it through breath work, or do you have another method?
I think I have different methods. What do you mean by connecting? Like connecting to source or love?
Yeah, like when you're calling upon entities or someone to help you, do you do it through
Okay.
breath work, or is it something just more internal?
Yeah, so it's really about intention and remembering our divine authority, and then which is basically remembering that we are source. Like source perceives through us all the time, 100% of the time. And that's something, the universe perceives. That's what another way to put it. The universe perceives through our eyes 100% of the time. So just remembering that, and remembering how expansive that source of our consciousness is, and that only the universe can only be created through love. So a combination of different things like that helps create the sense of divine authority. The more divine authority you have, the more powerful I think you can say that you are with commanding spirits, because angels are they respond better to commands that come from divine authority. So they don't respond to ego saying, please help me. No, that's not divine authority, that's fear. so
Yeah.
so it's like angels, I lovingly, from, like, I changed the term from angels I command you to like angels from the core love within my being I command you to. Like unconditional love within me I command you to. Things like that.
I think in one of your Instagram posts, it was nice. You said, "Pray like a lover, not a beggar," and I think that's a great way to
Mm.
put it. Um,
Yeah, did I say that? Dude, that's awesome.
yeah, I was on your Instagram.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
I like that one.
Thank
So
you.
let's go into some of this coaching stuff. When you're
Mhm.
working with clients, what are some of the issues that you most see arise whenever you're trying to help people along?
Good question. Yeah, one of the things that I see the most, to simplify it, it's really figuring out where the other person is not loving themselves, and me being compassionate about that by seeing that within myself, when from the past, or if it's present in me as well. And from there, like creating the supportive energy, surrounding them with love, and helping them realize through hypnotic language what they can see, the power within them, where they were not seeing their power or their love or their wisdom. It's like shedding light on where that is through hypnotic language.
Yeah, I can understand
So,
that. I'm gonna be real with you. As I'm interviewing you, I'm just wondering. I'm like, where does this egg crack? Where does the negativity go through? Because you seem so unfazed by so much, especially working with this intense, powerful magic, and your knowledge is it seems boundless in this area. But I'm like, where does he crack at?
that's a good question. You know, I'm curious about that too. I want to figure that out.
Yeah, maybe you need to arise some more challenges and really test yourself.
Yeah.
Shoot, you might have some real power you can work with. Because I
Oh
don't
man,
know when
I think
I've
the egg is always cracking. Actually, I wouldn't say I'm perfect by any means. I'm still figuring so much out, and I think the main challenge, one of my main challenges, is productivity, time management stuff. Uh, that's why I'm using magic to like sort that out, and it's been working, thank God. So yeah, I think after using magic, what helps is since it's a manifestation practice, it's manifestation techniques. The other aspect is seeing a timeline where I experience the thing that I want to experience in the future. Right, this is your right side, right? Okay,
okay. Sorry.
good.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll flip it in editing if it's not. Just go ahead.
Oh, okay, awesome. So I imagine seeing a timeline after I do the ritual. I imagine seeing a timeline of where the center is the present, the left side is the past, and then the right side is the future. And what I do is that I imagine what I manifested being in the future, and then I move that to the past with my hands, actually. Like, so it's all imaginary, right? We're playing pretend, but I move it into the past after I'm done with my manifestation ritual or whatever I did. And then I ask myself some questions, like when did I start becoming more confident, or how did I start becoming more confident? Why did that start to happen in the past a couple of months ago, even though it hasn't happened yet?
Oh,
And that's
interesting.
something that helps with not lusting for results, which is lusting for results is like worrying if the manifestation is going to happen. And that's something that a lot of people in magic talk about. Like, you don't want to lust for results ever, because what you're doing when you do that is you're sending thought forms into your manifestation that are canceling out your manifestation. So even though they're small, like the more emotion of worry you have and fear, the more the thought forms will accumulate and attack what you're trying to manifest or
Yeah,
cancel out, basically.
you're praying like a beggar. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, come on, bring it on. Just like you're almost like saying to yourself when it's like this hasn't happened yet. When you need to manifest it happening now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can understand that. I need to remember that. That's really because I definitely have pushed things and
Mm.
in turn pushed them away, and
Yeah.
which is not good.
Yeah, it happens. And I actually have one of the Google Docs has the technique. So yeah, I think after this interview, we can organize the Google Docs so that they look better, at least a little bit better. There's certain things I wanted to edit before it's more public. But yeah, then I can share the Google Docs there and see how it goes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I always need more knowledge because I'm in this for life. I need to.
Mm.
I'm really trying to build a personal library of all this knowledge so that I can kind of help people, as I said, get to that first step of spirituality in all aspects. Because some people come at it from the magic standpoint, some people have ET experiences, some people are into tarot.
Mm.
It's very different, but it's all kind of in the same sphere, is what I'm realizing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's all connected through the fact that consciousness influences reality in deeper ways than we think. And we can see that through the thought forms, but also symbols from tarot, for example. Tarot is a system of sigils that can attune your consciousness to specific information. And then astrology is another divination system as well. So it tunes you into different energies and information from the different zodiac signs and the planets. Yeah. It goes everywhere.
Yeah, I originally got into tarot, but astrology has got me hard. I love astrology. But I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of astrology, because I deal with this all the time, people are like, you believe in that stuff? And it's not like, no, I don't believe, I study. It's completely, I don't know what I believe. I'm just studying everything and seeing what resonates the best. How do you handle skepticism in these fields?
Ooh, that's a good question. So if I'm talking one-on-one with someone, I handle it by utilizing hypnotic language and say things like, have you ever experienced XYZ, maybe supernatural experience or experience that, like a dream, like deja vu, for example, something that they can understand or understand. It's the same thing, but understand and understand. But anyway, understand is more esoteric and just a word I prefer. Anyway, the other types of hypnotic language patterns can be like, imagine if XYZ was possible, or, have you noticed how like in this moment there's so much beauty and appreciation we can have for life, and say because of, and then whatever spiritual ideas that they believe in, and then you can build on top of that. And so that's like stacking hypnotic language, and then you can use the stories, because all stories are hypnotic, and it really opens their minds. Like, are you open-minded enough to XYZ, believe XYZ, or think about this, contemplate that?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I handle it.
It's got to start with personal experience. Like
Yeah.
it has to start there. Otherwise, people just don't even understand to question things.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a difficult question for you, and I saved this one for near the end because it's serious. You're a
Okay.
visionary. You're
Sweet.
working a lot. You're a hard egg to crack, and you work with all this chaos magic. How can people believe that you're always going to remain ethical in this field?
I think they can't. I honestly, I have my own dark sides, but at the same time, I will always go back to service to the greater good, because that is the most practical way, in my opinion, to operate. I think it's very impractical and self-destructive to be quote unquote evil, or to do things that are harmful towards others, even if there are enemies. So even if even if we have enemies, or if I have enemies, which I honestly don't have enemies, as far as I know.
Yeah, you could be getting there.
Yeah, like, I don't think it's necessary to use baneful or attack magic, because I still believe that there is karmic backlash. And so what can be done instead is to just subdue them through protection magic, or magic that doesn't harm them, like confusion, or misdirecting their consciousness, using so that they focus on a scapegoat, for example. And there's different spirits that help with that. Yeah, so being harmless, but at the same time, if there's any time where there's immediate danger, and the most powerful magic that I have is attack magic to stop them immediately, then I'm going to use that, even if it's close to lethal. If they're trying to hurt someone or kill someone, then yeah, I would use attack magic in that case. So it might not be ethical, but I think it's helping someone in, if there's a murder.
Yeah,
I would stop them.
I guess it does get a little gray there. It's like when you have to protect, you might have to cause harm in order to protect someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if a bear attacks you, you know what I mean? You got to shoot it or something. I don't know. Maybe you're screwed if a bear comes after you, but you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's an easy one to end on. Just because you're getting into this coaching, obviously as you keep going on, more people are going to be interested in doing coaching sessions with you. How can people best prepare themselves for a session with you?
Yeah, so I think one of the best ways to prepare is to really go into yourself, into your heart, and really focus on what you want and get clear on your intentions. And that will help so much with making the path a lot smoother in terms of the mentorship or coaching. It's both, I would say, because coaching does. I honestly believe that the best coaching is about asking questions, and questions are actually also very hypnotic, more hypnotic than statements. So that's why I believe the questions are very powerful. But yeah, that's the reason why is the questions. Whenever they have done this or you have done this, focusing on what you really want, then the questions will help direct the mind in the right direction through that intention that you already set. So that's, I think, the best advice. And also writing it down, actually. So once you're clear, write it down. And yeah, it's a really great way to prepare.
Yeah, I think I'm going to steal the way you did your mission statements. I'm going to do the same thing for Connection Lane. I really liked going through it because
Okay.
once I like really understood what you were after and what you were getting at, I was like, oh, I like how he has it written out here, and you're very consistent. I went through every single Instagram post. You're very consistent in the way that you operate. Um, so before we get out of here, Edgar, is there anything we missed? I know we went over a lot of how you got into things, kind of how you mentally see everything, sigil work, angel work,
Mm-hmm.
coaching. Is there anything we're leaving out?
I will say something.
Go ahead.
There's something that's coming through, which is that in these times where there's so much suffering in the world and so much depression and even genocide, there's like at least 6 genocides that are happening in the world right now,
Yeah.
including Palestine, of course, which most people know of, I hope. And yeah, like we, none of us have to do anything, in my opinion, to stop it. But at the same time, life gets more fun, more fulfilling, and more beautiful when we embody the mission that we came here for before we incarnated, before we were born. So I wanted to leave it at that because that is something that can be so powerful for us to live our best life, ideally. I truly believe that living our best life serves the greatest good of everyone. And part of living our best life includes helping people and being of service to others.
And
That's
I
my belief.
and I can see that in the
Mm-hmm.
way you're operating and how many people are going to need help being coached through these, that you experience a dark side of the soul when you first awaken, however you want to
Mm-hmm.
phrase it. You really do have to be presented with all your demons because you're like, oh, there's light sources out there, but then all dark sources are like, oh, look at this new initiation. I'm going to go attack it while it's still young, see if I can knock it down. um,
Yeah.
but that's beautiful. I've loved this conversation with you, Edgar. You're sexy. You're mysterious. You're full of this kind of cheery charisma that I don't know. I see why so many people are just drawn to you in a way, and I hope that after this interview comes out, more people will be coming your way. But
Mm.
thank you for talking with me.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate your compliments because I actually have used some magic to increase my charisma recently.
It's working. It definitely
Thank
is.
you. I highly recommend it for anyone who's interested in it.
Yeah. Yep. See the
Yeah.
links below, and I'll make sure some of these Google Docs are down there once Edgar gets them all refreshed and up to date.
Awesome.
All right. Peace out, man.
Well, you have a great rest of your day, man.
You too.
Appreciate the interview.
You have a spiritual connection.
Connected?
Connection
There's an almost spiritual connection.
that transcends the physical realm.
Spiritually.
Spiritually.
It's spiritual.
Personal and spiritual growth.